Now Paulson needed to find Terry Lee Farmer and have a little talk. With luck, Farmer would be arrested and Paulson would learn about it. He didn't have to wait long. 3 months after the disappearance of Herman and Oso, Paulson's nationwide detainer request hit pay dirt. A teletype message arrived from the FBI's Fargo, North Dakota office informing him of Farmer's arrest. Farmer was being held on a charge of reckless endangerment. He had been the driver of a vehicle when one of the occupants shot at the windows of the FBI office. Expecting a short first interview with Farmer, Paulson flew to Fargo with only one change of clothing and a return ticket booked for the next day. Paulson expected little, but he went for broke. He was emboldened by the 19-year-old's appearance, not as possessed and demented as Hartley, but scary nonetheless. The vacancy of Farmer's lifeless left eye drew in Paulson until he snapped back to attention in the cramped interview room at the Grand Forks County Jail. My name's Randy Paulson, Cocosino County Sheriff's Office, Flagstaff, Arizona. Paulson let the words Cocosino County and Flagstaff roll slowly off his tongue, intently gazing at Farmer, hoping the shock of a deputy from the scene of his atrocious crimes would cause him to recoil or flinch. I've been talking to your partner, Larry Hartley, Paulson continued, intending to hit Farmer hard and fast with blunt details he could have known only if Hartley had talked, then winging it from there. He told me a lot about you and what you two have been up to. Paulson sat across the table from Farmer, rubbing his chin and staring at the younger man. He then pulled a stapled stack of papers from his satchel and read them aloud, beginning in known territory where Paulson could trip up Farmer on a lie and blow his confidence in his web of aliases. Paulson began reading the FBI reports on the Oklahoma car theft. Once Farmer knew his aliases were blown, he would realize Hartley had talked too much. He would quickly figure out that Paulson had done his homework, since he had connected Farmer and Hartley to criminal activities in both Flagstaff and Oklahoma. Paulson proceeded to the Boulder City, Nevada chase and the recovery of the green and white Monte Carlo. Now, Farmer became even more worried as Paulson read from the police reports about the murders in both Texas and Arizona. An odd hat and Flagstaff phone numbers had been found in the Monte Carlo. Paulson took his time, reading each report of the crime spree in full to Farmer, leaving in all the stilted police speak of officers, exiting vehicles and times being denoted in 24-hour military style. Paulson read that Cookie had identified Hartley and Farmer as the Will and Ray she met in Flagstaff, driving a green and white Monte Carlo with Texas plates, and that Will and Ray had asked her to go to the Grand Canyon, but she declined. Farmer now knew that Paulson had placed Hartley and himself uncomfortably close to the Herman Oso disappearance. As Paulson read the reports, he watched Farmer for the slightest sign of discomfort. Slowly, he shifted into more fragile territory, inserting details based on hunches. This officer interviewed Larry Hartley in Roswell, New Mexico. Hartley was in custody on federal burglary and theft charges for offenses committed at Petrified Forest National Park and El Morro National Monument. Hartley was arrested following a high-speed chase and shootout with the New Mexico Highway Patrol. This officer determined to interview Hartley in connection with the possible double homicide of Kathleen Herman and Tilfred Oso. As if entranced, words unconsciously flowing, Paulson brilliantly fabricated a plausible confession of murder from Hartley. Hartley admitted to this officer that the victims had been picked up while hitchhiking on September 4, 1976. The victims were picked up on Highway 180 at the entrance of the Grand Canyon National Park during a rainstorm. Kathleen and Tilfred were the same ages as Hartley and Farmer and seemed hip. Hartley offered marijuana to the two hitchhikers during the drive toward Flagstaff and they accepted. After an hour, while Hartley was driving, Farmer pulled a gun and told Kathleen and Tilfred to keep quiet. He told Hartley to take a dirt road off the main highway and ordered Kathleen and Tilfred at gunpoint into the woods. Hartley waited in the car for 30 minutes. Farmer returned to the car alone. When Hartley asked about the two passengers, Farmer said, "I off the engine and fucked the girl. She's tied up if you want to go get some for yourself." Hartley said no. Then Farmer walked back into the woods. Hartley heard gunshots. When Farmer returned this time, he just said, "Let's get out of here." Falling silent, Paulson shuffled the reports and put them back into his satchel. A long pause passed and Farmer seemed ready to break the silence, fidgeting and squirming in his seat. Paulson looked in the farmer's eyes and let sigh a sympathetic sounding hum. Farmer was wavering. Paulson kept up the pressure. He's putting the jacket on you, Terry. He probably did it. Why in the hell should you protect him? Farmer decided Paulson already knew too much about the murder, so time to play dumb was over. I'll talk, but I've got to have a deal. I don't want the death penalty, Farmer blurted out. Give me all you got and I'll see what I can do, Paulson prodded. Once the dam broke, Farmer gushed an admission to the murders. Still, Paulson cautiously took his time. I need to get a lawyer appointed for you. I'll have to get approval for the deal from the Cocosino County attorney. Paulson couldn't contain himself as he left the room, eager to call Arizona. I've got him ready to lay down, Paulson told Cocosino County attorney J. Michael Flourney over the phone, trying to project a detachment and calm that he did not feel. I just need your approval of the plea bargain. Farmer will cop to the murders, give up the bodies, and testify against Hartley. We only have to agree to no death penalty. I don't have the bodies. I don't want the deal. What do you say? It was a no-brainer. Flourney gave Paulson the green light. What else could he do for a cop who had solved a murder before the police had a body? You've got it. Be sure to get a confession he can't worm out of, and make Farmer give up the bodies. 5 days later, after daily trips to the laundromat in Dakota's freezing November to wash his only change of clothes, Paulson flew back to Flagstaff with extradited prisoner in hand and Farmer's confession to the murder of Herman and Oso tucked safely in his briefcase. Farmer had agreed to testify against Hartley for the Texas and Arizona murders and promised to show detectives the location of Herman and Oso's bodies. For his cooperation, Farmer would get life in prison and escape the death penalty. Hartley was driving when we saw them, Farmer had told Paulson back in Grand Forks, North Dakota. We spent 2 or 3 days at the Grand Canyon. Picked up 2 hitchhikers on the way back to Flagstaff. We blew some grass in the car. I needed to take a leak. When I came back to the car, Hartley had the gun pointed at him. Paulson believed Farmer had tilted the story to minimize his involvement. Farmer claimed Hartley had taken the lead in the crime, with himself always as a passive observer. Paulson doubted that Hartley had pulled the gun on the hitchhikers without Farmer expecting it. He doubted that Hartley had chastised Farmer when he didn't tie their hands tight enough and retied them himself. That Farmer had no idea Hartley planned to kill. That Hartley had strangled Tilfred and then raped and strangled Kathleen. That Farmer had touched neither until both victims were dead, when he finally went into a frenzy and smashed their skulls in with a rock. But it didn't make sense to press Farmer too hard before he led Paulson to the bodies. Early the morning of December 17, 1976, Detective Paulson drove north from Flagstaff on Highway 180, the same route millions of Americans take every year to see the Grand Canyon on their summer vacations. Terry Lee Farmer sat shackled and slouched in the back seat of the detective's cruiser, and his mind drifted as he remembered his past 2.5 years of aimless travels from one end of America to the other. He knew it had to end. He couldn't keep it up, and now he realized that this was possibly the last time he would be on the free and open roads of the Southwest. He had liked this area best, for amidst its open blue skies, stark landscape, eerie silence, and pastel sandstones, he had found a place with enough rawness to momentarily quiet his inward tempest. Too many dirt roads off Highway 180 in the uninhabited vastness of Cocosino National Forest confused Farmer. Paulson followed his prisoner's uncertain directions to 2 bodies somewhere amidst the high desert sagebrush in Ponderosa Forest. Hours dragged by as Farmer told Paulson to drive down the same back roads more than once, but time after time he found something not right with each dirt track. As the hours passed, Farmer thought back for the 1,000th time over the events that most plagued his mind: his estrangement from his family. "Dad, am I adopted?" 10-year-old Farmer asked his father, a Southern Baptist who sold insurance. "No, son, you're ours, just like Vicky," Dalton assured the little boy. It didn't ring true. In his heart, Farmer felt certain it was a lie. How else could he feel and be so different from his father and mother, and Vicky too? The lie made him angry, so angry he burned inside. He remembered catching himself the next week in shock when he killed his black cat after it scratched him. He had flung his pet against the wall and killed it. He didn't know why, but it made him feel better. Soon, his adolescent violence spread to people. When he struck his mother in rage, he left home for good, realizing that if he didn't leave, someone in his family would seriously get hurt or die by his hand. At 17, he became an aimless drifter, and 2 years later, he took the same drive that would end Paulson's investigation and recover the 2 bodies decomposing with the help of coyotes, crows, and magpies. What would the bodies look like, he wondered, as Farmer stared out the window at the snow-covered sagebrush prairies. He relived the day in Texas when the deadly duo first got their hands on the Monte Carlo with its 440 cubic inch engine. "You'll never get away with it. We'll catch you and run you down," declared Kelly Paul Bryan, the Monte Carlo's owner. Those words seared Farmer's mind and spelled doom for the owner. "Why'd he say that to me?" Farmer wondered for the 1000th time. Dumb little shit. If he kept his mouth shut, he'd still be alive today. Farmer knew now what had happened. Even with a loaded gun to his head, the idiot wouldn't shut up. He dared him to shoot him, so he did. Farmer thought he understood what had happened when the Monte Carlo's owner died. It was a macho thing. Man to man, it didn't bother him nearly as much as Kathleen's murder. With his confession, Farmer believed that he had traded his freedom forever to avert killing another woman, a taboo in his warrior's mentality. Girls were always my downfall, Farmer thought to himself. It was a girl that led Farmer to commit his first crimes he considered serious. Animalistic acts of revenge for the assault and rape of Diana, his girlfriend and early partner in crime. While riding around in Paulson's squad car, feigning uncertainty about where to find Olso and Herman's bodies, memories flooded his mind. At age 16, Terry and Diana had run away from home to live on the streets of Atlanta. Alone, broke, and on the run, he supported the pair using Diana as bait.